Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John's reports for the 14th of June. Happy Flag Day for those that still know what that is. Um, we're looking at the NQ right here, and at the end of the day, not a whole lot of change from the previous day. Let's put the ES back up first. The range was pretty decent. You can see we're still at the high side towards the 100% level. Magenta still leading on the NBI white. Shorts have faded off, though we see an increase from a DOC. Spread right here at the beginning, so we could see some intraday again movement like before. That potentially has some weakness value in it, but you're going to need to see a decay in the magenta, and of course that's going to show up on 50K and 5K charts first. From an NQ, we look at it again likewise, just a complete rejection of any attempt by shorts to make an active roll. And you can see from that DOC red moving well above zero. Now, it is to stay above there because a dip back below that will be a little bit of a fade. And of course, don't forget positive extremes throughout this entire thing, so we know the retrace setup as soon as selling starts where it's going to take things. So it keeps it pretty clean. Potentially have a rollover here of our NBI gray. And if you get that blue cross below, which right now, pretty even. But a crossover there would definitely spell the potential for a little bit of weakness within that setup. And of course, treasuries, this, is the interesting thing. Everyone's expecting these massive rate cuts and everything, which potentially is interesting when you look at the unemployment numbers that came out of California and stuff like that. Heaven forbid, you just arbitrarily increase your minimum wage to 20 euros and $20 an hour, and you wonder why all of a sudden your unemployment drops. But it's such a wonderful thing. It's like, well, why did they just pick 30, 40, 50? And this gets back to that age old argument. No one's ever gotten to the concept of doing an incremental thing where businesses can absorb it. But when you have that great a shock, particularly in an inflationary environment, it always creates havoc. And, you see the reports from all the different service companies that have to reduce staff or increase their prices. So again, it's one half dozen the other. It's like, what are you really getting from it, and how bad do you squeeze business, and can they absorb it? And when you do things in a dramatic way, it's a little tougher to absorb, which is what the Fed is kind of jiggling here. They're basically job voting the idea of a rate cut while not actually doing it. So it's, they're trying to keep that confidence up so that, everyone doesn't go into a, oh my gosh, what's going on situation. Oil, though, continuing to be at the elevated area. Saudi Arabia just announced after meeting with Zelensky that they will not renew the U.S.'s 50-year contract for oil. So that's an interesting one. And this is that geopolitical mess that it's hard to predict what the outcome is. There still hasn't been a significant impact from a Ukrainian attack on Russian infrastructure for oil. So there, any of those disruptions could certainly spike oil very fast, and that would be catastrophic from a growth standpoint. Certainly, it's already elevated. From a euros, we laugh about this when the euro climbs up, and it's such a joke because they're just elevating it. And it was rising during their announcement of a rate cut. Well, the U.S. doesn't cut rates. Why is the euro even where it is? I mean, this is a ridiculous elevation for it. But again, this is part of that. You go with what is, and when you see them making an error like that, it's easy to take advantage of it. I certainly do. From a gold standpoint, the softness is in there, but I think the reality is that they know inflation is not under control and it's not stopping. Now, the rate of increase had diminished somewhat because of the reduction in oil, but you could see a resurgence again of that, particularly in labor. Labor is always the biggest key when it comes to outside of energy, where inflation goes. And at this particular case, we're seeing an interesting diversion where most of the jobs are being created, at least on the paper, are part-time and or from non-U.S. born citizens. So it's really creating an interesting dynamic. And at some point, the numbers will have to smooth that. And of course, they'd probably wait till after the election before you see the real details come through, because everything's always an adjustment. It's always a revision after the fact. And of course, the market only reacts to the headline. From a Bitcoin, nothing really particular taking place in cryptos at this particular stage. You're sort of in a pause because, again, with the market high flying, you can't go into any other asset class other than commodities. There's not a whole lot of room for anything else. And, if you get softness in crypto, people are really stuck with, well, what do I do? They're kind of frozen. So that leaves the market as the only alternative move. So from our 50K, we can see we just bounced around here, making successively lower highs as we go through there. That becomes problematic. And you can see that NBI white spike that strong enough usually to break below the support. Will it push all the way to the 50? That would be the most logical move if it continues in the soft read so far. Nothing dramatic right now, just off about 9 here in pre-market. From an intraday standpoint, though, mostly selling early on, pre-market, and then that continued a little bit, and then they flip it again. This is what we're seeing on a regular basis, where depending on whatever the start is, option players have to flip the gamma and everything on it to wipe that. Otherwise, it just gets too much for them. And, that's just a play back and forth, so you can see where we're at here. Pre-market, pop up, faded it all, pretty clean overall action. I think we're just going to see more of this back and forth until something gives. And with an election, you're still, the bias is always to the upside, because they're going to do whatever they can to make things look as rosy as possible, and appearances often outweigh reality. So you go with what the readings are, plain and simple. A lot of people say, but it can't. No, don't do that. Just take what you get in the readings and go with that. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put on the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.